Okay, so you want to own a business that makes almost all of its money in about 12 weeks a year. Not because you planned it that way. Because your customer's air conditioner picked the hottest day of the summer to die, and now they have no leverage at all. No time to shop around. No time to call 3 contractors and compare quotes. Just a house at 91 degrees and a phone number they found in a panic. That's the entire HVAC industry, hiding inside a service call that looks completely ordinary. A technician shows up, looks at a compressor for 4 minutes, and hands you an invoice for $4,800. You pay it, because what's the alternative? Sleep in the heat? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how that $4,800 gets built, why the biggest private equity firms in the country have quietly spent the last 3 years buying up local HVAC shops one at a time, and why an industry that looks like a bunch of guys in vans is actually one of the most disciplined pricing machines in small business. Here's the thing. This isn't really a story about air conditioners. It's a story about what happens when a business gets to set the price after the customer has already lost the ability to say no. Every business has a demand curve. Restaurants have dinner rush. Retail has Christmas. HVAC has something stranger, a demand curve triggered by a thermometer. When the temperature crosses a certain line, and it's usually somewhere around 95 degrees for 3 or 4 days running, HVAC systems across an entire city start failing in waves. Not because the units are all the same age, because heat is the thing that finds the weak point in a system that's been quietly dying for 2 years. The capacitor that was barely hanging on. The refrigerant line that's been leaking a little every summer. The heat wave doesn't create the failure. It just calls in the bill. Here's what that means for pricing, and it's the part most homeowners never think about until they're living it. A full AC replacement in 2026 runs somewhere between $6,600 and $12,000 for a standard system, and can climb past $20,000 once ductwork, electrical upgrades, and permits get added in. That's the base number, negotiated on a calm Tuesday in April. Now, take that exact same job and run it through a heat wave. Most HVAC companies build seasonal adjustment directly into their price books, an extra 10 to 15% on AC work through June, July, and August, and that's before you're even talking about an emergency call. After hours and weekend dispatch routinely carries a 50% premium on top of that. Not because the part costs more, because the labor pool is maxed out. Every technician in the metro is already booked, and the company knows exactly what a homeowner in a 91-degree house is willing to pay to make the problem go away tonight instead of Thursday. So the real product HVAC companies are selling in July isn't cooling. It's the removal of your ability to wait. And once your ability to wait disappears, the price stops being about the compressor. It starts being about the calendar. Let's follow the money inside that invoice, because this is the part that breaks people's brains once they actually see it laid out. Most HVAC companies don't bill hourly anymore. They bill flat rate. One fixed price for a defined job, quoted before the technician touches anything, pulled straight from something called a price book. And the price book isn't guesswork. It's a formula. First, the labor. A technician getting paid $28 an hour on paper actually costs the company somewhere between $42 and $55 an hour once you load in payroll tax, insurance, the truck, the tools, and training. Companies bill that loaded rate out at $85 to $150 an hour, sometimes higher in expensive markets. Second, the parts. A $40 capacitor doesn't get marked up 10 or 20%. It gets marked up 2.5 to 3.5 times, sometimes as high as 4x on small, fast parts like capacitors and igniters, because the labor-to-part cost ratio on those jobs is so lopsided. Third, the target sitting underneath both of those numbers. Most profitable HVAC shops are pricing every flat rate job to land at a 60 to 70% gross margin. Not 10%, not 20, 60 to 70. Run the math on something as small as a capacitor swap. 30 minutes of labor at a $120 loaded rate, plus a $40 part marked up 4 times, and you land on a flat rate of roughly $220 for a job, with maybe $60 in real cost. That's not a ripoff in the legal sense. It's disclosed, it's standard industry practice, and it's built to survive callbacks, slow winters, and a fleet of trucks that cost $30,000 to $50,000 a year just to keep on the road. The technician isn't quoting you a price. He's reading you a number that finance built months earlier, engineered to hit a margin regardless of how the actual job goes. You're not negotiating with the guy in your driveway. You're negotiating with a spreadsheet he's never seen. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the smartest HVAC companies figured out that the real money isn't in the emergency call at all. It's in getting you to stop calling around. Nearly every serious HVAC operator now pushes some version of a membership plan. Call it a comfort club, a shield plan, whatever the branding is. Somewhere around $19 a month or $99 to $199 a year. In exchange, you get a spring tune-up, a fall tune-up, and priority scheduling when the board lights up with 50 calls during a heat wave. If you're getting 50 calls in a heat wave, why does that membership matter so much to the business and not just to you? Quick pause before I show you the number that answers that. If you're finding this rabbit hole as interesting as I am, hit subscribe. I'm breaking down a different business every week, the real numbers behind the ones that look ordinary from the outside. Anyway, here's the part that's genuinely counterintuitive. On the maintenance visit itself, that $19 a month plan is barely break even for the company. 2 truck rolls a year, a filter, a tune-up, the math on the service alone doesn't make anyone rich. So why do HVAC operators fight this hard to sign you up? Because a membership customer generates roughly 2.5 times more revenue over time than a customer who only calls when something breaks. And because when the company eventually sells, and in this industry, eventually almost everyone sells, recurring membership revenue is worth dramatically more than one-off jobs in the eyes of a buyer. A new construction-heavy HVAC business trades at around 4 times EBITDA. The same size business, but built on service agreements and memberships, trades at 6 to 8 times EBITDA. Top-performing shops now pull close to 28% of total revenue from memberships alone. That $19 a month was never really about your filter. It was collateral for a business valuation 3 years from now, proof to a future buyer that your loyalty isn't a coincidence, it's a contract. Every HVAC company will tell you the technician standing in your kitchen is a trusted advisor. In a lot of cases, that's true. But look at how that technician actually gets paid, and a second story starts to show through the first one. Flat rate pricing was originally built to reward efficiency. The tech who fixes something in 15 minutes earns the same flat fee as the one who takes 45. That part's a genuine win for everyone. The problem shows up when commission enters the picture. A lot of companies pay technicians a percentage of what they sell, and once that structure is in place, the incentive quietly shifts. A repair that would fix the problem for $400 pays the technician far less than a full system replacement at $8,000. Nobody has to tell a tech to push the bigger job. The commission structure does it for them, invisibly, every single call. This is also the reason for the labor shortage you keep hearing about. And it's not unrelated to the pricing you just saw. Skilled technicians are scarce, which gives them leverage. Companies have to overpay to keep them, which raises the loaded labor cost, which raises the flat rate, which raises what you pay. Every link in that chain feeds the next one. So the advice you're getting in your kitchen isn't neutral, and it isn't dishonest either. It's just aimed. The technician is a good person operating inside a compensation system that was engineered on purpose to make replace it the answer that occurs to him first. Here's the question that actually matters if you're thinking about this as a business, not just a bill. Why has private equity spent the last 3 years buying HVAC companies as fast as they possibly can? The HVAC market in the U.S. has more than 100,000 operators, and the 10 biggest hold less than 10% of it combined. That's about as fragmented as a market gets. Thousands of small, profitable, family-run shops with no idea what they're actually worth. So private equity built a playbook. Buy a strong regional company, a platform, at 7 to 9 times EBITDA. Then spend the next 2 or 3 years buying 5, 10, sometimes 60 smaller shops around it. Each one picked up cheaper at 4 to 6 times EBITDA. Apex Service Partners alone closed roughly 60 of these add-on deals in a single year. growing to nearly 300 businesses and about $1.3 billion in revenue. Sela Services, Wrench Group, Service Logic. The names are different. The math is identical. And the payoff isn't just the acquisitions. A $30 million platform operating independently might run an 8 to 12% margin. Folded into a PE-backed platform with shared purchasing, shared systems, and centralized pricing, and that same platform can hit 18 to 22% margin within 2 years, without adding a single new customer. That's not growth. That's just squeezing the inefficiency out of 10 businesses that used to run separately. Every time your neighborhood HVAC company changes its logo, but keeps the same trucks and the same technicians, this is almost certainly what happened behind the scenes. The company didn't get better at fixing air conditioners. It got bought by someone who was better at pricing them. If you want to see what happens when someone runs this entire playbook on themselves, on purpose, there's no better example than Ken Goodrich. Goodrich grew up holding a flashlight for his father, a repairman crawling through Las Vegas attics, fixing air conditioners. He bought the family business at 25 and almost immediately got buried. An IRS bill for unpaid payroll taxes he didn't even know existed. He didn't know what payroll tax was. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual story he tells. He rebuilt anyway, sold and scaled several home service companies. Then in 2013, he bought Girdle Air Conditioning, an 80-year-old Phoenix brand that was, by his own account, failing. Instead of quietly running it, he leaned into the one thing a roll-up can't manufacture, the story. He told people Girdle held 114 patents. He told them about the Girdle brothers driving trucks with air conditioners strapped to them through Phoenix in the 1940s, cooling down strangers as a marketing stunt. He turned an old, tired brand into something people specifically asked for by name. The business went from $11 million in revenue, losing $3 million a year, to $250 million across 11 locations and over 1,000 employees. Eventually, the platform sold for roughly $500 million. Goodrich didn't just fix air conditioners better than the last owner did. He understood something the private equity platforms buying up his competitors also understood, that in a business this fragmented, trust is the one asset that can't be acquired at a discount. Everyone else was buying trucks and technicians. He was building the reason a stranger would pick up the phone and ask for him specifically. You called them for cold air. He built an empire on the heat. Every business in this video had one thing in common. The emergency was real, but the timing was still, technically, up to the weather. A heat wave gives you 3 or 4 days of warning before your system finally quits. There's one industry where that warning never comes at all, where the customer has 0 time to shop 3 quotes, 0 leverage to negotiate, and where the demand event happens exactly once, with no repeat customers, ever, and it still manages to be one of the highest margin small businesses in America. Next time, I'm breaking down exactly how funeral homes turn the most rigid, most emotional purchase a person will ever make into a pricing structure most families never see coming, and the specific reason they can charge what they charge.